Okay, good morning, everybody. Boker Tov. Our shiur today is going to be on Halacha, Hilchot Pesach. I'm not sure exactly what happened here on Friday. There was Rabbi Cohen also that went on Halacha, but we will try whoever was here, whoever was not, and fresh. Just before we start, I'd like to ask every one of you, because this is one of the only things that we could do these days, is just stay home. Telling it to people all the time. I'm just going to. Okay, could just everybody mute their mics? It's going to be easier for it to talk. I'm just asking everybody just to stay home. That's what we all told all the time, our community, just staying home. I think I'm passing it now. I hope I'm towards the end of it. It's not so nice. And there's a lot of symptoms that people even don't know that it's part of the symptoms, and they go outside because they think that they're feeling well. So just stick home, because it could be very, very dangerous for others. So just seriously stay home as much as possible. Don't go out. And Bezat Hashem will all pass it in a good way, because we all have neighbors and people that we see on the street, and God forbid it could be very, very dangerous for older people. Does anyone have any questions before we start about halacha? Any questions that he has this year more than other years because he's staying home for Pesach? I would like to answer some of those questions, if anyone has. Okay. Okay, so if no one has any questions to start with, we will start with the Hilchot of Agalat. Some people this year will not be able to do it by the rabbinate, so they'll have to do. Up. So if people won't be able to do it by the rabbinate of our other places, some people have to do it at home. So there's a few things that we need to know about Hagalat Kelim, and how to deal with some kind of pots and cutlery that during the year got messed up between the milchik and the fleishiks, and this is the opportunity to do them, or other scenarios that you have of Pesach. You'd like to kasher some of your regular dishes for Pesach. So the first thing is, what are we able in general to kasher, and what we can't kasher? So I won't go into the details exactly how it's written inside the halacha. Let's put it very simple. Anything that is from cheres. Cheres is who could help me over here out in English? Cheres, clay cheres. Cheres is it's not porcelain. Porcelain is something else.
This life.
Excuse me? Okay, I'm going to check that up when I'm speaking. 1 second. Fly. Yeah, exactly. Things that are out of clay, you can't kasher those, because basically they absorb and they don't take it out. It just goes in, and you won't be able to take it out. The only way of kashering, they say it's to break it. So basically you can't kasher such a vessel. Even if you just used it for cold stuff, okay, for cookies and those kind of things during the year, the halacha says that you should not use those kind of kelim on Pesach. You should avoid using those kelim that were used even for cold. That, as we know, cold stuff does not pass over from one thing to another unless it's something that is hot. But even if it's cold, we don't. We try not to use those kind of things on Pesach. zchuchit, if we have stuff that is from glass, and all kind of metal that is covered with glass, we have a minhag that we don't put them, we don't make agala like kelim of cheres. Some people do use glass. Let's say Sfardim, I know, do use glass from Pesach for during the year. They say that it's not an issue. Most of Ashkenazim don't use glass that was used on chametz for Pesach. Anything of metal, clay matechet, and clay etz. Matechet is metal, and clay etz are from wood. V'kli etzem moila lehem agala. Okay, so anything that is from metal, wood, or that is made from a bone, okay, some old stuff or some very special, some people have some with a bone on it or something that is special. The halacha says that you could do hag'ala. What is hag'ala? Hag'ala is that you bring it, you put a pot you bring a pot that should become very, very, very hot. It has to bubble. When the water bubbles, you could actually take one by one, vessel. Let's say you have a knife that you would like to kasher for Pesach. You have to fill up a pot pretty high, let it bubble, and then you could put the knife inside the water. You have to put also the whole knife inside the water. So maybe you want to use some kind of a vessel that would hold it inside. So you could put it in, take it out, and then you have to put it in cold water. Okay. Any vessels that we have that will ruin if we put it in hot water. For example, some vessels that we have that they are glued together. It's a few pieces that are glued together, or for example, a handle of a knife that is glued together to it. So if you're going to put it inside hot water, it might ruin it. It might disconnect from each other. Don't do agala for that, and the reason is because people will be afraid that they will be afraid that it's going to ruin, and they will put it they won't do it in the right way that they need to do it. The best is, of course, whoever is able to buy new stuff, unused cutlery, pots, whatever is, that he should buy new ones for Pesach. But of course, if a person is not able to buy, or if he's not able to go out, let's say, for example, these days now, some people are not able to go out of the house, and not all deliveries work now online. So a person is asking, what is he supposed to do for Pesach? He's able to take his regular stuff, if they are not, as we said before, if it's not two pieces, or if he has regular cutlery that he's using the whole year, he could wash them really well. In the forks, by the fork, you have to check inside the fork where the fork is. So in between, many times we don't even realize, but sometimes there's some dirt over there. So a person has to go really seriously into each one of them and clean it well. And then you take a pot. So if it's a during the year pot, if it's not a Pesach dike pot, it's better to kasher that pot first. How do you kasher the pot? First of all, you're not allowed to use a pot like that for 24 hours. So you put the pot aside for 24 hours, you don't use it, and then it has to be really clean, that there's nothing, no reshimu, there's nothing there that was maybe from chametz. It has to be very clean. You clean it also with materials, with soap, that could take out whatever is there. Then, as we said, we don't use it for 24 hours. Then you fill it up with water up to the top, and you have to realize that the water gets really, really hot and bubbles, and it's pretty dangerous. So you have to be careful how you do it, and let the water spritz over the pot. So if it's gas, for example, watch out that it doesn't turn off the gas and the gas stays on. Just make sure that you do it carefully, Some people take a stone, a very hot stone, to put in the oven, but then you have to have the oven also kosher. So basically, let the water spritz over the top, and then that thing becomes kosher. That pot becomes kosher. So you take that pot that you now made kosher, you fill it again up with water, and you put another pot or some kind of maybe a plastic thing or something else with cold water next to it. Now you take all those cutleries or whatever you have that you would like to kosher, and it's possible to kosher as we go through the list of stuff that you could kosher, and you put them inside, as we said, one by one. Some of the things that I say over here might be a little bit chumrah. I was working for Rabbi Lando in Bnei Brak for some years in Agolas Kalim, so maybe I'm taking a little bit chumrah, but it's not so hard to do it. So why not just do it this way? I think it's easier. I think it's better. You take them by one. The reason is one by one and not a few at a time, because basically we have to have reticha. It has to bubble when the things are inside. Now, physically, if you take a few things together at the same time, it might cool off the water. So if the water gets cold, it doesn't help on the cutlery or whatever it is. It's not going to become kosher for Pesach. So you have to make sure the whole time the water is bubbling. The whole time the water has to have the bubbles at the top. If the water is hot, it's not good enough. You have to have the bubbles all the time running. So if you put one at a time, the chances of the water getting cold are very small. But if you put 10 pieces of cutlery in together, that they come in from a normal temperature, a room temperature, they might cool down the water. That's one thing. And another thing is that every one of them has to be covered with the water from top to bottom. So if we have the water, if we have those cutleries going in, and they're going in together with a few cutlery together, they might touch each other and one won't be surrounded with all the water. Okay. Now, after we put them one by one, how about if I have a pot that I'm not able to fit into that pot? Or if I have some kind of a big dish that I'm not able to fit in fully into that thing, it's too big and I don't have a bigger pot, you can do two halves. Okay, so you take the pot. Let's say this is the pot. You put it halfway in. You take it out. You touch it with a. It's going to be very hot. So with a towel, you take it and then you turn it over and put it again halfway in, and then into the cold water, as we said, halfway in, and then you turn it over and halfway in into the cold water. Now, all the pot that we're speaking about that a person is going to kosher for Pesach, excuse me, if the pot has handles, of course, all pots have handles. So if you would like to kosher a regular pot for Pesach, most of those handles, if you could take them off with a screw, you should screw it off. Take it out, take it off, and take those screws off and clean behind the handles, because normally there's a lot of dirt there and you have to take everything out of there. The best thing to do, because sometimes it's very dirty there and you're not able to clean everywhere well, so there's another way of dealing with it, is doing libun chamur. What is libun chamur? Libun kal. Libun kal is you take a brenner, fire, and you point the fire on that spot until, if you will touch the other side of the metal, you'll be able to melt a piece of kash, a piece of very thin material. If you put it on the other side, it will burn. That's called libun kal. Libun chamur. Libun chamur. What is libun chamur? It's something that has to be a very hard burnt. For example, sometimes we do libun chamul for example, let's say there's something that you can't kasher. Machvat. Machvat is I think it's the saucepan. What is the machvat? Over here. A pan. If someone has a frying pan, okay, a frying pan, you cannot kasher. Why can't you kasher? Because many times you use the pan for dry stuff. Basically, the halacha is the principle of the halacha is kashem shebol'o kach polto. The same way that he absorbed the isul, or for we talking about the chametz, the same way he absorbed the chametz, the same way it will take out the chametz. Okay, so kashem shepolo, the same way he took it in, he took it out. So if this kind of pot took in the chametz by hot water, so you have to put it in hot water in order to take it out. But if it was by fire, for example, a frying pan, many times we don't want to use oil, so we put directly, let's say, we put some kind of dough or something like dough on it, on the actual pan. So now, because there was no water and it was heat with the dough, the only way of getting the dough out of it is only by fire, by giving it a very hot fire. That's called libun chamul. Now, a pan, a frying pan that you're going to put very hard, very strong fire on, it will destroy. It will bend. It will bend, and it will make holes in it. So you can't kasher such a vessel like a pan. I'm sorry, this is how it when everybody is on computers and lessons. Okay. Another important thing, we spoke about the pans that we have with the place of the handles of the pans, pans or pots, more pots. We're talking about the handles when you take off the handles. So if you're able to take them off, that's good. You screw them out normally, and you could clean around it, clean it well, and you'll see a lot of there's a lot of dirt over there. You have to clean it all before you kasher it. But how? What are you going to do if you're not able to take it? If it's not with a screw, but it's metaled in, what are you going to do then? So again, you have to use a brenner. It's with fire in order to get a good fire on that area where you're not able to open up. And from experience, the minute you're going to put the fire on it, it's going to drip a lot of dirt out of it. A lot of dirt is going to come out of those places. Okay. If you have vessels that are like stuff that you put in order to clean pasta, okay, so it's a pot with a lot of holes in it, that has a lot of holes in it. That is a little bit more difficult. Since you have a lot of holes, it's better. So a gala is not going to help, and better not using those kind of things if you use them in hot, of course. Okay. So as we said before, the way that you use the pot, that is the way that you're going to kasher the pot. So a pot that you used without sauce, you'll have to kasher it in a way Without sauce, that means with heat, with fire. And fire mostly, many times fire could actually ruin the vessel, so it's not the best thing to do, and actually it's better to not use those kind of things unless you really need them, and then you could kasher it. How about a pot that you were doing your cooking inside the soup, for example, and you have also a lid for that pot, and you have some kind of something that you were mixing, some kind of a big spoon, for example, and it was standing on the fire, okay? And many times happens that the soup is finished, or the sauce got dried at the bottom. It's not considered dry. You could still kasher it in a pot with water. Okay. Okay. How about if you have a big thing that you're not able to, you can't put it into this big pot. So this geder in halacha that it's called irui. Irui mikli rishon. Irui meaning to say that you take water, boiling water, and you pour it on that thing. That the minute you pour it on, the temperature already goes down. So there's a way of doing it. It's very difficult to do it at home. In kashering, when you kasher places, you make sure you have the equipment. But the thing that you do it, if someone will try, is with a very hot stone. You take a stone, you make the stone very, very hot, and then you put the water on it, and it actually takes up the temperature. So it's either stone or metal that is very, very hot, and then you pour the water on it, and it goes on the thing that is a big thing, and then the water is in a very high temperature, and it works in order to make it kosher. The pot that we used to kasher with, we try. It says like this. Nohagot anashim, that's what it says over here. Nohagot anashim, the ladies, שלא להשתמש בפסח בסיר זה שממנו יראו הרותחין תחת האבן המלובן, not to use that pot that we used for rotchin תחת האבן המלובן. Basically, that pot that we poured the water on something, since the steam went up into that pot, don't use it on Pesach unless you kashered that pot later. Okay. Okay, now we go into a little bit of more details about it. It says, הגלת מפליטה, מפליטה רק את החמץ הבולע בתוך דופני הכלי, ואינה מסלקת את החמץ הדבוק בכלי מבחוץ. The hagala that we're doing only helps with the dirt, whatever is inside the vessel, but not what is on the outside. Therefore, you have to wash, rinse very well the whole thing from inside, outside, and if you have anything on it, you have to really clean it very, very well. שלא יישאר שום משהו חמץ דבוק עליו. There should be no chametz anywhere, and you should also wipe it well before. That should not have any water on it from the cleaning. Then when you're going to put it into the big pot, it's going to cool off the water from the big pot. Okay. Okay, if a person has, as we said again, a vessel that it's not easy to get into places like handles, you could burn it with fire. And then you'll see dirt coming out, and that should be enough before you're putting it into the vessel. Also, many times there is a stample of the company at the bottom of a pot, and many times there's food that drips over, and it gets into those kind of places, and it's not really clean. So you have to get into those into all the holes over there of the stample, because maybe there's chametz over there, and you could actually see it. So clean it really, really well, and if you're not able to clean it well, you have to burn it. You could actually take the brenner, as we said, and you could burn it. You could burn that area in order to see that it's coming out and nothing will be there. Nothing should be left over there. Any questions? Anyone has anything that he would like to ask? Practical things for hachshara that he has at home? If no one is really going in to do hachshara at home, maybe we could go in different halachot. Yaakov? Hi. We're going over these halachot. It's maybe practical for some people, but if it's not, if someone feels that it's not really practical for him, just for information, we could go over other halachot. We don't have to go over these halachot especially. Okay, so we'll continue. So we'll go over again the seder of how you do it. You fill up a pot full with water until the top. Let the pot boil over, and you have to make sure that the water goes over the top in order to kasher the pot. Then pour out those water, rinse it well in cold water, fill it up again with water, and in that water you could kasher the kelim. Now, if this pot was a kosher Pesach pot, and you want to kasher in it, that's not a problem. You don't have to kasher it now before. Only if it's during the year. If it's a chametz pot, then you have to kasher it before. As we said before, also you have to see that all the time these bubbles. If there's no bubbles, you're not allowed to kasher. You can't kasher. It's not going to help. He says here also that it's better to leave it in a little bit. The vessel, leave it in a little bit and then take it out, but it should be covered the whole way, and then put it in and take it out. But a person should take it out still when the water is bubbling, because if not, as we said before, the way that it's absorbing, that's the way that it's going to take out. But as long it's taking out, it could not absorb. But the minute it's not taking out anymore, if the water is not bubbling, it will start to absorb. Therefore, you have to all the time have the water bubbling, that it should not absorb, but only take out. And as we say, straight after, you have to put it in cold water in order to cool down over there. It says something interesting that if you have a lot of vessels that you're going to clean, you're going to make hagala for. First, it's better that you should put the kelim, the vessels that we used for easy stuff. Meaning to say, if you had vessels that are there that only by cold, and you want to kasher it for Pesach, so you're putting it, you're making agala to it, better put those first. Then put the pots that had really chametz in, and those kind of things that you use them in hot. Let me see, I see someone I think sent a question over here. Okay. Yaakov, any questions? I can't hear you. Maybe you want to, you could, on the left side of the screen, you could unmute yourself. Yaakov, you wanted to say something? Okay. Okay, so let's go over some practical things that we have in our house in order to kasher them for Pesach. So we have the sink, a kiyol, the sink that a person has in his kitchen. So let's go over it from inside, and I will translate and explain. Kiyol hamidbach shel cheres. If someone has a sink from clay, v'shel porcelain, that it's a kind of stone. אין מועיל לו הגלה וליבון, אלא ינקהו היטב מחמץ בעין וישים בתוכו כיור נוסף של פח מיוחד לפסח. You can't actually kasher those kind of sinks for Pesach, but you have to put inside another sink special for Pesach, from metal or something else that you use that for Pesach. כיור של המיל מחמירים כפוסקים האומרים שאין לו הכשר, בכל מקום כדאי לעשות לו עירוי ואבן מלובן ג' פעמים ואחר כך לעשות לו בכיור פח. Anyways, even if you can't kasher the thing, it's better to put hot water over it and then cover it with some kind of a different sink that you put inside in order for the things not to touch it. In such a case also, don't use hot water because hot water will eventually touch the sink at the bottom and maybe will bring something out. So don't use hot water in such a case. If you have a sink from metal, menakeu mechametz ba'ain, you should clean it really well from any chametz that is there. Ve'yachol ha'achshiro al yedei libun kal, and you could kasher it with libun kal or by putting hot water on it. So if you have boiling water that you're pouring over that sink, that should be enough. If you have this even, this stone that you are able to even put the temperature high of the hot water when you're pouring it over that stone, that's even, of course, better because the temperature is much higher. If you have a brenner, this fire, it's better to, if you have such a thing, to go over the sink with a brenner. It's not, you don't have to do it long. I mean, you don't want to ruin it or to make any damage, or maybe the plastic or the silicone on top could get ruined. You just go over slowly, and you go over the sink with it, and then put cold water on it. That's if you do it with a fire. How about if you're doing it with water? So as we said before, you take hot water from the first vessel, meaning to say the first one, the pot that was on the fire, from that pot you have to throw it over. Don't put it, don't take from that water into something else and then pour it over, because every time you're transitioning into another one, you will lose in temperature and we want it to be high. So therefore you have to do it, you have to take it over from the first one. Yeah. There's another way of doing it. You could fill up the water with hot water, fill up the sink with hot water, and add to it very hot stones that they heated up before the stones, and then the water really going to be very hot, and that kashers it. Of course, if we're talking about the sink is clean. Anything that we kasher, we're not allowed to use 24 hours before. Therefore, so the sink, a person should not use it 24 hours before. והכיור יהיה יבש לפני אירוע הרותחים, וכשיוצק את הרותחים בכיור להכשירו, ייזהר שלא יפסק הקילוח המים לפני שיגעו בכיור. Make sure that the water goes directly onto the sink, and they should not stop from the kettle or whatever you're using of hot water before it touches the sink. Now this is about the sink. How about the hole where the water is going down? Because as we know, many times there's a lot of stuff that gets stuck over there, and we don't even know that it's there until until the water goes up. So it's better before Pesach. First of all, it's better to clean it, but not everybody knows how to do it. He doesn't have time for it, or whatever the reason is. So today we have all kind of stuff that you could pour into it. You could buy it in Albert Heijn and different stores. That it's something very, very, it's something very strong, and it will actually eat whatever is there inside the pipes. It will melt it. It will take it off, and just put some water, and everything will get out of there. The handles, a person should clean them very well, and pour water over the handles of the water. The actual top, if you're able to take it out and make hagala, but it's something that is not practical these days, that's the best. But still, pour hot water over it, and if you're able to change the piece that has the filter, that's of course very good, because sometimes we have hot stuff in the sink, and the thing goes up, and it actually touches many times, could touch chametz. So the best is to change that filter, but only, of course, if you have such a filter to change. If not, just pour hot water on it. It says over here that the person should take off the filter or change it to a different one of Pesach. Okay, how about the stove? A person that has gas, electric stove at the top, gas or electric. So if a person has gas, those metal things that people put pots on top of them, if you have gas, those need libun gamur. As we said, libun gamur is to put, you have to hold a fire on it until the thing becomes red. It takes time. You can't do it in the sun because you're not going to realize, you're not going to see it red, but it has to become red. Now, sometimes you could actually break it. It becomes red. Sometimes the metal could break. It's also very, very dangerous. You should not do it with any kids around. And but when it becomes red, you have to you have to hold it with some kind of a svat, with some kind of a metal thing. You can't, of course, touch it with your hands or with nothing. You have to pick it up with something else and put it inside cold water. So that's we're talking about the the things that the metal things that the pot is sitting on. How about where the fire comes out from? Okay, so those we say a person should clean them well. And you could just leave them on where they are normally and put on the gas. Let them like get the fire for about an hour. Why? Because if there's any chametz on it, it will burn. The chametz will burn. Okay, the burner plates, whatever is under like that to receive the dirt or whatever comes out from whatever falls from the pot, those have to be libun kal. You have to go over it with a brenner in order to use them on Pesach, because if there has anything absorbed onto it, that was the way that it got in. If you're using the same stove, the same oven, so the buttons that you normally use in order to put on the gas or the oven, you have to clean them well to see that there's no chametz on them. And it's even better to cover them. Some people cover it with aluminum foil. You cover it with aluminum foil, and that's the best thing to do, so you don't touch them with your hands. Kiraim, person has a stove of chashmal from electric. For example, ceramics, I think it's called. A person could put it on on the highest until it gets red, and then it could use it. Not for every shita. Some say that you can't because it has glass on top, and glass we said you can't kasher. But whoever says that you could kasher glass, you have to put it on the highest, and then you could actually use it. How about a fridge and a freezer? A person should just clean them very well everywhere. When you open up the fridge, we have the plastic that makes the vacuum for the fridge. We don't even know, but many times there's a lot of crumbs in it. So take something very gentle, either a tooth stick, or something very small, but make sure not to make a hole in it, because then the fridge is not going to work well. So you have to open up.
Toothbrush, yeah, a toothbrush.
A toothbrush or something, but make sure that not to make any damage to the fridge, because you could actually tear this plastic, and you're not going to have the vacuum, the same thing in your fridge. So that's not good. Open it, clean it well with some materials or whatever you're going to find. Just clean it well, that you see that there's no chametz that you could see. Some people cover the fridge inside with some paper, so they won't. The pots of Pesach or whatever you put inside will not touch something that was there on a regular day. But if you clean it well, some people use it like this, and some people actually put papers on it. How about the closet where we put all the food? Also clean them well. If you didn't use it with hot, you're just putting them. You're just storage. It's just using it for storage. Just put it there, clean them well, and cover it with paper. That's also a very good thing to do. How about if a person has a bread box that he wants to use it on Pesach? So if you used it only for regular bread that you brought from the bakery, clean it very, very well, and then you're good. But if you sometimes put chalot that you baked at home and it's still hot, or if you put cakes that are still hot, you put it inside, then you're getting into a different category, and you have to kasher it, and it's difficult to do that. Therefore, it's better not to use it, and don't kasher it, but sell it with your chametz. Okay. How about the table counter where people are eating the whole year? So if it's something that you put on hot stuff, a person has to clean them well, and then, as we said before, you have to pour hot water on it, and then cover it with silver foil, or with wood, or with carton, or whatever. Cover it. But if it's a regular table, you could kasher it regularly, and you don't have to cover it. Some people say you don't have to cover it. Better cover anything that had any contact with chametz. How about a table that you don't put anything on it? You don't put any hot things on it. But if you have some kind of you use it only with a tablecloth, clean it well and cover it. You don't have to kasher it because you didn't put anything hot on it. Chairs and benches, clean them well. Many times in our chairs we have chametz between the seat and the back. There's many times a lot of chametz in it, so you have to clean it well. High chair of a baby, of course, a person has to clean it very well. And where the baby was eating, the tray, better to cover it with paper in order that it should be covered the whole Pesach. Today, many of us have IKEA, and it's a very cheap thing to buy. I think it costs €5. You just buy a new tray. This is our lesson till today. I would like to wish everybody a lot of hatzlacha, and please stay connected for the next shiurim that we have over here, and keep posted. שיהיה בהצלחה לכולם, חג פסח כשר ושמח.
יאללה, הצלחה, תודה רבה, עקיבא.
תודה רבה, יום טוב.
תודה רבה ויום טוב.